Welcome to the podcast of School Beyond Limitations. In this podcast, you will learn how to guide your child through their school life with the intention to help them find their unique essence that will allow your daughter, your son to live a fulfilled and meaningful life. Welcome to our podcast today, and we are again having a conversation with Nayeef and myself, Martina Geromin, the designer and co-founder of School Beyond Limitations. And today we would like to go into depth with regards to the power of teaching back. The power of teaching back. And Nayeef, why are we talking about teaching back? What reminds you when you hear the word, as a student, I'm teaching back?
Well, the first word that comes to my mind is that we're all learners, right? And the power of teaching back, or the purpose of teaching back at School Beyond Limitations, is that the students feel like they're leaders of their own learning and they lead their own learnings, right? So what they do is that they understand a topic, they have perhaps developed certain expertise on that topic, or they feel confident that they want to share this topic with the rest of the class. So they just do it. They get a space, a safe space where it's not very judgmental, rather it's something where people are motivated and interested in your topic to learn from you. And the facilitator obviously plays the role of a facilitator. This is why I wouldn't call them teachers, because they don't just teach, they themselves become learners and they facilitate your learning passage and pathway. And I remember the first time when this concept was introduced, I was personally very motivated to do it because I always have several topics to share with people, but it's hard to just do it in a regular class always, because always, you have certain class agendas and you have the entire class learning together. So it's not always the right environment. But then again, you create these environments at certain times where, you give space to every single student to share their topic of interest with others, and sometimes it just ends up to be a great project. I remember the first time when I was doing a teach back about poetry, it turned out to be like, every single one of the people in my class had several poems written, and there is a friend of mine who still does it, who still writes poetry because of that day. And these are these are stories that come out of it, right? And it's very powerful because you give the sense to the student that you're not only there to listen, but it's an interactive classroom culture. You are taking leadership of your learning, and also you're responsible for the classroom environment, right? You are a role model for the classroom, for every single one of the people that's present there, including the facilitator, because then you are not only listening, but also giving back, and people are taking things from you. And this is something which lacks in traditional schools. But I think this interactive classroom culture is very required, because this is exactly how the world works. The world doesn't work in just one way. We are not just consumers in the real world, right? You have to give back. And when from a very young age you give the people this space, and it takes a lot of confidence, right, to build up and to actually present to the whole class and speak fluently and then express your ideas, expression, communication. These are all the soft skills that lies within us, but we just have to let it out through a safe space. And this is exactly what Teachback does.
And Nayeef, I think you touched upon something very important, because the teach back at School Beyond Limitations is not just sharing. It's not the flipped classroom for a specific, topic, or only a presentation about a specific topic. The teach back is really taking, as you rightly said, responsibility for the entire class from the beginning to the end, to go through all the features of the class to ensure that the students are coming along, are also participating, are co-creating with you, and basically also from a holistic point of view, it's not just about the content, it's about, mindfulness moment, it's about, collaboration, it's about, igniting this spark within. As you rightly said, poetry that you did left an impact on your peers, that they continued thereafter, and they are still doing this. So what would you say? I mean, you already touched upon that, of course, but what are the features that you as a teacher, because you become the teacher and the teacher is also the learner, and you get this understanding that teaching and learning are intertwined, right? They are intertwined. So what are the features that actually stand out and set, this concept apart from conventional school?
Well, the first thing it does is that it takes away the understanding or the sense of division. As I think in our last podcast, I mentioned about division. We divide things a lot. Like, my home learning is something completely separate to my school learning, and my work learning, or the things that I do with my friends is fun, but it's different to education. So when we divide things, we actually take ourselves away from the sense that education is a broader topic. It's not just academics or just home things or just games or whatever. It's a combined thing, right? And what the teach bags does is that it gives you the sense that the teacher and the student are not separated entities. It's not like it comes from this and we take it. It's rather something where you co-create, right? The word co-creation is very vital here because you together build something. Sometimes a facilitator, of course, they're facilitators for a reason, would facilitate your learning, but then you yourself have to be interested in the topic that you're learning. And that's what we call it personalized learning, because you shape your own learning, right? Along with the facilitators and then along with the peers as well, because it's a togetherness that makes the SBL culture even better, because you not only learn for your own topic by yourself, but you also include your peers, and your peers include you in their topics. So what you do is that you get a broader understanding of more and multiple topics, and together you build a project out of it wherever you feel the necessity to include an information. For example, maybe one of my friends is or one of my peers are explaining something about sugarcane cultivation in Brazil, and then I am interested in the paddy field of, let's say, Sri Lanka, or the tea gardens of Vietnam, let's say. So I together, if it's necessary, I can work together and collaborate on a project, and the facilitator facilitates. But once we have a project and we have developed certain, sense, and we have developed this confidence, we want to share it with a greater class. So we do it. And sometimes we even combine two classes together, right? It's not just within my classroom, but we also reach out to others. And there is this, honestly, I feel like this is also a great space. What we have is a secondary community chat, right? We share it with the whole school community, have people share there, we look into it. But for this, we have to be interactive. We have to develop that interactive mindset. And that can only be developed if we are given the space to open up and express ourselves. Because the best way we learn is not just by listening, but it's also by providing and making things happen and reaching out to people, because that's how we develop the sense that what it feels like to interact with people, what it feels like to not just, as you said, present, but to include everyone. The inclusive learning culture, makes me a greater leader, because that gives me a sense of everyone, and I'm open towards adapting to different learning models or to different topics. And the classroom culture, like that with the teach back specifically, even during the normal, like the regular sessions, we have the facilitators not teaching us, they facilitate my learning. So I think the same thing, the very things happen in the teach backs. It's just that we switch the roles, and it's still a great interactive learning culture.
And you just mentioned something, about how do we learn, and it's really about, of course, we want to learn, we are curious, we want to gain more knowledge, more information, but it's connected to relationship. I need to feel and emotions. If I feel something for it, then I'm moving forward and curiosity stays there. And this is what we are trying to do. And yesterday I was in a class and I was really not surprised, but delighted to hear something, because I said, what are the features that you think are really important for your learning, so that you can move forward, so that you actually understand, that you are not just a consumer, but you are the creator of your own learning, but also of the learning of the others. Because if you engage, then there is a vibrant, and it becomes a vibrant learning environment. And this is certainly happening through the teachbacks. And not only, however, but the student then said it's really about open-mindedness. If I decide to be open-minded, if I decide to be open minded, then I'm there to listen, I'm there to intake, I'm actually ready to intake, and I'm ready to contribute to what I'm taking in, and I'm ready to use my own thinking. And one of the students said, because then I reached out to the student, because I realized this student was really in their minds, right? In their minds. And then I said, everything all right? Yeah, I'm just thinking, and this is beautiful. So there is this understanding, okay, you are thinking, you just need a little bit of thinking time, and in the teach back, these are the experiences. And you mentioned about visual learning and listening and all of that. And I think I would introduce this kinesthetic learning also, the part of experiencing it through everything, right? You said emotional relationship, touching, and if I'm going out with the project that you were talking about, Sri Lanka and Brazil, and you put that together and you are going out and you interview people and you go, and you see that you can also compare it to, I don't know, wherever you live, then there is meaning in what we are doing. So if you had to, let's say, describe the power, because that was the how we started, this conversation, the power of teaching back. So what are the skills, if you had to mention 5 skills that you learn through teaching back, what would you say?
Well, before I comment to that, I wanted to touch upon the word relationship, as you mentioned, right? Because this is a vital thing for any learning, for any environment. You go to offices, you go to team sports, you stay at home, you need to have a great relationship with your family members, right? So I think the same thing is for a classroom, right? And because the classroom consists of only 8 people, 9 including the facilitator, it becomes much easier to access every single individual and to build the synergy and to be very united and very close knitted with one another, right? And why this is important is because you see, as you said, when we are learning or when we are trying to be open towards other projects or other topics when someone else is presenting or is reaching out to us, we sometimes, it's very common around, if you see, like, we sometimes listen to them, but we don't listen to them properly, right? We sometimes are ignorant about what they have to say because we don't genuinely feel connected to them. Hence why we don't feel connected to what they're presenting. But with SBL, I think it's much more easier to access people directly. So you feel connected to them. You feel like you are a one united group. And that's why when someone is presenting, you intentionally, unintentionally become a bit more focused, a bit more concentrating towards what they have to say, because you feel like that's one of my people saying it. So the division actually, goes off, and you feel much more united. And I would say, this is also a powerful impact of teachbacks, right? Because then you not only listen to the facilitators, but you also have to listen to your peers, and you willingly are listening to your peers because they have something that they have got something interesting to share because you're spending time with them and you genuinely show off that curiosity. The other powerful impacts, as I said, mentioned in the first part of the podcast, is that what a simple teach back about poetry did to some of the people, right? And this is it, because sometimes, of course, we have to be curious about learning, but for that to happen, we have to know what is there out in the world. What are the topics? Because if I'm in my own world about, let's say, architectures, right? I'm all about that. I'm learning and constantly, looking for new things. But then I might never know what archaeology is exactly all about because I have not dived into that. Someone else have done it. So when they present it, I might get interested in archaeology, and maybe that could be something I want to, dive deep into, and I could use some of the information here. So it's all about, opening up your borders of learning and having lots of topics to be coming at you, not in a sense that it's being forced, but in a sense that you're taking them willingly. And then you might use some of the information. Or I also know people who have completely changed their projects of the week or of the year or of their plans because of a simple presentation from the facilitator or from some of the peers, because that topic was not introduced to them. Now that it has been, they feel more connected to the topic naturally. And this is the kind of powerful impacts we're talking about. And of course, the soft skills, as obviously as I mentioned earlier, is that when you become responsible for others, you actually have to be responsible. You cannot just sit there in the class and present like you're being told to. You have to be interactive. You have to reach out to people. So what it does is that it develops the communication skills. It develops a skill to actually, connect with people much more at a deeper level. You develop interpersonal and intrapersonal understanding in depth, because you now have to understand yourself, like, what exactly am I doing? What is the purpose of this? You have to find meaning in everything that you do. Remember, like, our classrooms are divided in many sectors. We have the meditations and journaling and warming up, and then main topic, and then going into high time and working out as well. So these are all the categories of things that we do in 3 hours of lesson. But for every single one of the categories to become meaningful to you, you have to feel connected, and not just to the topic, but to the people who are also included in this, including the facilitator. Everybody has to feel like we are sharing a purpose, we're sharing a meaning behind this, and this is exactly why we're doing it. So when students are clear about their whys, I think everything becomes much more meaningful and much more easier for them to either contribute or to take in.
Well, Nayeef, I think you have mentioned so many different features and skills and values that are enhanced through teaching back, that I don't want to repeat them all. But one thing is for sure there. The one thing that is the golden thread through everything. It ignites, the love for learning, and it ignites the understanding that, we always co-create as a team, and as a team we can do so much more. And with this engagement, we have basically all the opportunities and possibilities out there. So I would say, if you think out there, right, this is something that you would like your daughter or your son to experience, where your children understand that learning is much more than just intaking passively, but becoming an active creator, an active learner, an active and engaged participant of their, and not only participant, actually a contributor to their life and to the life of others, then School Beyond Limitations may be the right place for you, and we are very much looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Nayeef, for this wonderful conversation, and see you next week. At School Beyond Limitations, we support our students find their unique essence. Feel free to share the content of this podcast with other parents. We are here to show that your children can, indeed, bring their unique essence into life. So, reach out to us if you think that this is what you'd like your daughter, your son to experience, or apply through our website. Also, leave your comments, your questions, or your review about the podcast. Share it with others. And as you know, sharing is caring.